On a journey, of course, you're going to be experiencing a lot. There's going to be movement. It's dynamic. It's surprising. And it also has a meaning and a destination. I spent most of my life in a state of seeking something, wanting something. And I wanted to know why. I mean, even when I was a little kid, everybody has that natural sense of wonder and curiosity, especially when you're a kid, right? You're always asking why. And I think that never stopped for me. The difference between my sister and I is that I think with me, everything was a fight. Everything was like, I had to be convinced. I remember a particular story with my father about a ladder. I had this old bunk bed, and there was this ladder kind of attached to the side. It just kind of dangled off. It was this wooden ladder, and I remember thinking, wow, this doesn't really function well as a ladder for my bed, but this would be awesome outside my window. One day, I must have gone on a walk or somewhere with my mother, and I came, and the ladder was gone. And I thought, oh my goodness, my ladder. And my dad decided it wasn't a good idea that this ladder that I have access to at any time of the day or the night is outside my window. And I had a fit. Oh, I had a fit. I was so angry. How dare he take my ladder? It's my ladder. It's my window. It's my, it's a very personal, deep, important thing, this ladder. As much as I deserved every whipping that I could have ever gotten, I didn't really get spanked. My parents were great with me. They knew I was an intellectual beast and that they had to really talk it out. All of our family is from Southern Ohio, so I spent a great deal of my childhood traveling back and forth. They kept us very well connected with our larger family. So because of that, I was able to meet the most influential woman in my life, which was my grandmother. She was a teacher, and I always found that really fascinating. And she loved life, and she loved human beings, and that's probably where I got my sense of a deep affection for the human life, for every human life, and a kind of sense of wonder and interest when you meet someone new. Who are they? What are they? I was raised pastor's daughter, Baptist pastor's daughter. We were at the church all the time. So there was a lot of play in that building. There was a lot of being there as in worship on Sundays and on Wednesdays. And it really our lives really did center around the people of that community. I remember many times from a very young age being in the car or being at home and just saying, Dad, I don't really agree with what you said on Sunday or something. And him taking me really seriously, as a kid, and dialoguing with me and even disagreeing with me, giving me that kind of debate I was looking for. He was never afraid of my not falling in line with a certain ideology. Being in that kind of open environment, especially in matters of faith, really helped me have the strength and the bravery to kind of go on my own, to follow my own path. My sense of justice became greatly disturbed in junior high, as I think it probably does for most people. I mean, I felt like, oh, I can't be a singer because I don't look like her, or I can't have this because I just wasn't made right. I was completely angry and detached from my body. And that's one of the reasons why I started doing yoga in high school, was because I finally thought, certainly this isn't the way I should live. It was kind of the secret hidden room in my heart that was dark and full of skeletons and broken and wounded, and I had stuffed that little girl in there. Little Megan was inside, kind of beat up, black and bruised, and I hadn't properly taken care to see that she got the attention she needed. I was never one that was in a clique or anything, and I was always a bit of an activist because of that. You know, I was always trying to show people what I felt was the better way, which was openness to people. When I was 18, my sister and I actually traveled together to Ukraine. They had a thick history, a complex history, where they were battling over their identity and who they were, and they had survived it. So there was a kind of silent strength on their faces that I wanted to honor, you know, in some way. I wanted to understand. As time went on and I got into college, I became more and more, you know, frustrated with my concerns about the world and reality. I met this professor who, I think his whole goal in life is just to like shake people's foundations and be like, what's left? We're going to be thinking people. We're going to engage in the life of the mind. We're not going to reduce anything. We're going to look at science. We're going to look at gender issues. We're going to look at social concerns. We're going to look at all of this, and we're going to say, how do we fit in? Suddenly I was awake. It was saying to me that the path to certainty about who I am as a human being is a long, complicated, dynamic thing. And it cannot be held or boxed in one idea. I just got more and more invested in not only biblical studies, but also theology and philosophy. I'm so grateful for that well-rounded education, because I was really pushed to refine all of my questions, to become a thinker, and to say, don't rule anything out. Look at science. You know, become as familiar with scientific theory as you can. You know, look at sociology. Become as familiar with the human condition as you can and how we live together. Look at psychology. Look at all of the factors. Look at all of the tools with a radical openness, and ask yourself how they affect you. Ask yourself how they mold you. Ask yourself how they can teach you. Many cradle Christians, Catholic, Protestant, whatever, grow up feeling, you know, this pressure to fit into an ideology, to fit into a paradigm, to follow the rules that they feel are important. And it wasn't until I said, you know what, screw all that. That's not what this is about. This is about something more real, something more true, that has little to do with my belief in a certain premise, and more to do with my experience of life, of my humanity, my encounter with other people. What does it mean to love one another? You know, that has always been my question. What does it mean that we could become one with each other? These are the things that kind of drive my life, and those were the things that I felt like Catholicism valued. It was just my language, you know, that I resonated with, and as soon as I heard it, it was like music. In every realm of our humanity, it really comes down to one question, and it's a search for meaning. That's really what I do. That's why I'm a theologian. That's why I'm a minister. I want to understand my humanity, and I want to be with others on that journey. I've been reaching a crossroads in what do I kind of contribute to society? How do I contribute to society? And for some reason, this man came up in my mind, who I only met one time. He came and spoke. He was a theologian. His primary work is a theology of love. And I told him where I was in my life. I told him I wanted to contribute to society. I told him I wanted to be a theologian, but I didn't really know how. And that I was worried about my country. I was worried about my generation. I was worried about if the church had a place in humanity anymore that was valuable. And he said to me, he said, you know, Megan, I was recently having a conversation with some of my friends who are also theologians, and the question was posed, if you had to pick any time period to live in, what would it be? And he said they all went through their various time periods and their various, you know, well, I would pick this, you know, time period, because then I could, you know, do this and I could offer this to the world. And, you know, his turn came and he looked at everybody and he said, this one, I wouldn't live in any time but this one, because now is the time for building a kingdom of peace, for building a kingdom of truth. Now is the time where the human person can contribute in a way that he and she has never had the opportunity to do before. The last thing he said to me is, as I was walking out the door and we were putting up our umbrellas to step back into the cold and rainy Scottish weather, was, you know, Megan, you're going to find your way to participate. And when you do, you got to believe and remember that there is every reason to hope for the world. But more than that, you're a beacon of hope. You're a beacon of hope. That's who you are. That's what you need to do. And I remembered that I don't have to know the content of everything. I don't have to know all of the unanswerable questions. I don't have to know everything about the mystery of life to be a beacon of hope. I just have to remind people that there's hope. And to me, that's what a good person does. They remind our humanity, our race, that despite all the economic craziness, despite all the suffering, despite all the pain, despite the loss, that there's beauty, that there's happiness, that there is hope. And that's the person that I want to be. That's the contribution I want to make to the world.
In the sweet by and by, we shall meet on that beautiful shore.